Hi, everyone. Happy Halloween. My name is Bernadette Desir. I am the host of the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Welcome, welcome. Today's special guest is Harriet. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's Halloween and I got my look on. I
You didn't tell me
got
this was a costume party. I would have come dressed for the occasion.
Yeah, welcome. I'm just so excited to have you to hear your story and what you're passionate about. But to start, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Harriet Harris, and I am a life business coach. I am also an author, a speaker, and I am the host of You Are Not Your Trauma podcast.
Ooh, I love that
And
name.
so, thank you. Thank you so much. There's a whole story behind that name, but
Mm.
we can get into that a little bit later.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
But what I do is I help people to see their full potential. I was someone who was stuck in life because of a childhood trauma. And I realized that trauma can keep you so stuck in a place of not moving forward. And once I started moving forward, finally, after 3 decades, I realized that my purpose was to help other people move forward. So, being stuck can look a lot of different ways. It can look like not believing in yourself. It can look like not feeling like that you are capable of doing certain things.
Mhm.
And what was most vital for me was entrepreneurship. So I saw a lot of people who had this desire to be more, do more, but they were not willing to really trust themselves. So though for those who experienced trauma, I want them to help them see that life isn't about being stuck where you were. It's about moving forward and just living the life that was designed for you. And so I help them to get unstuck and to move forward, for especially for those who are looking to be entrepreneurs, to start those businesses. So
Mm, I love that. You're doing quite a bit of important work, I must say. And I love that it's connected from things you've been through and your past and your trauma, because when we open up those spaces for people to come, it allow for them to express themselves in ways that they may not know of, right?
right.
But take us to the beginning, if you may, or wherever you feel that we should start.
Okay,
How much trauma
absolutely.
did you had, and how did you overcome and heal from it?
Well, let's just say for me, I'm still overcoming because my the way I see it is that healing is a journey. And so overcoming it is, I feel like, a constant process for me.
Mhm.
But if you and it's so interesting because I'm used to being on the other side asking the question. So here I am being asked the question. But um but for me, I was 10 years old when I was raped by my older cousin's friend. I was at a sleepover at a family member's home, and um, I was asleep,
Mm,
and I was violated, and then I was kind of left there to deal with everything that came afterwards. So
mm,
what that did was it shut down a 10-year-old who was just starting to begin to understand life um and really live. And it just really shut me down because not only was my trauma what happened with the violation, it got extended when I shared what happened to me with some trusted family members because my parents were out of town at the time. Um,
mhm,
they were family members that I trusted, and they told me that I wasn't telling the truth. They called me a lie. So that further made me shut down. Um, and it created a lot of uncertainty within me, with trusting people, with trusting, really knowing who to trust, like really knowing, should I say something, right? So it quieted me. And that went on for many, many, many years, like in school, in the workplace, in relationships. So it had a very long lasting impact on my life.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. Um, I'm gonna say me too. And
Mm,
I try not to say I'm sorry because I think sometimes some stuff we experience, we learn from them. And look what you're doing now with
absolutely.
what happened, right? It's not
Absolutely.
coming from a insensitive place. I'm
Oh,
trying to come up
absolutely.
with a new word to say, and it's me
Yes.
too, me too. And it happened to me young as well, and it happened to me over and over, over and over. And you were so young. And when things like that happen, we do shut down our
Mhm.
body or psyche even. And
Yes.
it doesn't make sense
No,
why anybody would do that, because the child of a mind is so precious and unique compared to an adult. Um,
absolutely.
and the fact that they didn't believe you, and it angers me because it's happening today, and there are
Yes.
people that are supposed to protect and love kids. They don't believe them.
Yes. That is
And
so true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
And it
my.
changes things. It changes how you, especially when you become a parent, right? It changes
Mm,
how you parent. And I completely agree. You said that you wouldn't say you were sorry because there are sometimes things that happen in life that shape us. And this
yeah.
is something that has absolutely shaped me. Now, for the for the last 30 years, I can't say it shaped me in a good way.
Mm,
But now that I have begun a true healing journey, see, for me, I thought that healing just meant getting over it.
mm,
I thought that healing just meant, you know, putting it in my past. But the truth of the matter is, what I've learned over these last few years is that healing is processing it. It's taking it all in and really understanding who I am because of what I went through.
mm,
Um, you made another very good point. It was something I actually pointed out to my mother recently, is that while I am, never going to be excited about what happened to me, I do feel like that it was something that happened that now positions me to truly understand and be able to help other people. I
yeah.
feel like that is part of the purpose that I was created for. Now, did
Mhm,
it happen in the most amazing way? Absolutely not. But had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be able to understand it at the level that I do, and I wouldn't be able to relate and help people in the way that I aim to.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing. So what has been your healing process? And what do you read certain stuff? Do you meditate? I don't know. We heal differently.
Yeah,
Tell me yours.
we all do. And then I'm so glad that you asked this question because, um, you know, I would say my healing began, I say this very often, my healing began when I forgave myself. That was the
Mm,
very first step. Yeah.
mm,
I spent 30 years, 30 plus years actually, blaming myself for what happened. If I hadn't A, then B wouldn't have happened. And I can't tell you how many rabbit holes I ended up in focusing on that, right?
mm,
So I actually went to a wellness retreat in Philly last year, and it was a Women of Wellness retreat. My church had sent me there to represent the church, and it was so interesting because I wasn't really supposed to be there. They were supposed to have that retreat in 2020, but because of COVID, it got pushed back, and they didn't have it until 2022. So the person that was supposed to go was
mm,
no longer available to go, and I was asked to go. And I
mhm,
go and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Ooh, I'm getting a break from, momming and working and, all wifing. Like I'm getting a break. I'm getting
mm,
some time away." And I remember getting there, and I remember hearing so many of the things that people were saying. And I was already at a place where I had started working on my mindset and really shifting that. And so they began talking about the woman at the well. And they started talking about, yes,
Mhm.
they started talking about how important it was for us to empty our water pots. Like as women, we carry around all these things, and maybe not just as women, but humans too. But this just happened to be a women's conference.
Yeah.
But they talked about how we carry around all these things. We
Mhm.
carry around hurt and pain and all these things, and we sit and we stew in it and we ruminate and we just
Mhm.
kind of keep going. And so after I heard the first couple of sessions, I'm like, wait a minute, this was for me.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, so they talked about first letting go what was in our water pot, right? And then by the end of the conference, they talked to us about not looking back and not turning back. So, you let it go, you empty it out, and then you don't go back. And that is where I realized that I had struggled for so many years, is that as much as I tried to move forward, I kept going back.
Mhm.
And so I realized when I got home from that conference, I'll never forget, I was standing outside in my front yard, and I remember looking up at the sky and I said, God, I forgive myself. Because it was time, because I had spent decades carrying around baggage that wasn't mine. I was blaming myself for something that someone else did to me,
Mhm.
and really taking it out on myself because there was nobody else. And so that day was probably the most freeing day, and the beginning of true healing for me was forgiving myself, and then just taking the time to process what that meant since. Now, the ongoing part of healing for me does look a lot like some of the things that you mentioned. It's praying, it's
Mhm.
staying connected to God, it is meditating, it is doing a better job of taking care of and prioritizing myself. It's
Mhm.
creating boundaries. It's, you know, believing in me, because that was another revelation that I had, was that I was struggling to believe in myself because I had made a bad choice when I was 10 years old. I made
Mhm.
a bad choice to go somewhere. And I guess I should clear that up. So my bad choice. So my parents had taken us, my brother and I, to my grandmother's house
Mhm.
to stay while they were out of town. And they said, don't leave, because they knew that's where we needed to be.
Mhm.
And so some of my other cousins and family members, they all lived in the same area, like right around the corner. And they said, hey, all the kids are going to this person's house. You go too. And it's like, okay, but my mama said, and it's like, oh, don't worry about it. You go too. So
Mhm.
in my mind, all those years ago, I made that decision. I made that choice. And because I made that choice and I didn't listen to my parents, I felt like I was I was punished, honestly.
Mhm.
So I'll fast forward to back to where I was saying that I struggled to trust myself because I remembered the bad thing that happened when I
Mhm.
made a choice, when I trusted the choice that I made. So realizing that, trusting myself was important, creating boundaries were important, all those things, all those things are part of what helps me to heal.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I love that you're talking about forgiveness because I think it's a lifelong journey. And we're very quick at times and easy for us to forgive others. But when it comes to ourselves, we
Ooh,
don't give much to ourselves. I'm speaking
we do
from
not.
experience, right?
Yeah, me too.
I
Yeah.
it's like there's a shocking thrill of feeling my suffering. It made me
Mm,
feel like I deserved it, even though I didn't, right?
yeah.
We
Yeah.
when we're that young, oh, it depends on the age and what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody deserves anything bad
Yeah,
to happen to them.
absolutely
Whether
not.
they did something wrong to get something wrong happen to them, I still don't think they don't deserve it. Can they learn and
I
grow
agree.
from it? Absolutely, they can.
Yes.
And I love also you're talking about the women at the well. My gosh, I now I know why I'm in love with her, because that's been me. And it
Yeah.
hasn't been people that saying that I'm unclean. Well, they
Mhm.
do sometimes, with mental health struggles and whatnot. It's mostly me in my head hearing myself scream,
Mhm.
unworthy,
Yeah.
unlovable, unclean. No one wants
Yes.
you. No one likes you. It's all me. It's nobody else. Even
Those
people.
limiting
Yeah,
beliefs.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. How can
And
people break that cycle?
it's so interesting that you ask, because that is something that the journey, I'm telling you, the journey is serious.
Yeah.
But that is something that I realized that I had. So I
Mhm,
imagine I'm in my 40s, right? So we're talking 2 years ago. I started as a business coach. I was creating a course. I was working on a new course that I was creating,
mhm,
and it was all supposed to be about limiting beliefs, about crushing and getting rid of them. Because what I learned was that that is what stops you. That's what you believe about yourself is what stops you from moving forward. Because I was one of those people that I had 100 great ideas and I'm starting a whole lot of things, but I wasn't accomplishing the things, right?
mhm,
So I started learning and about the limiting beliefs, and I started looking into it. And I was like, this will be great because this will help people. And there was something in the back of my head that says, nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to want to do that. Do something else. So I created a brand new course, whole completely different course, all about business.
mhm,
About I want to say last year, around probably September, maybe it was July, and I'm sitting down and I pull out all of my notes from this course that I was supposed to create,
mhm,
and it was almost like I heard God say, "Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you to do this?" I mean, it was almost as clear as day, and I'm like,
mhm,
oh dang, you know and so part of what I wanted to do was not only to create a course, but also to create a journal that I could pair with it, so that people could work through their limiting beliefs. Because there's a process, right? You have to know first that you have them, identifying them, and then you have to judge whether or not are they really true, right? And then you have to rewrite your script, is what I call it.
mhm,
And so I kept pushing, like, what am I gonna so I started writing out this journal. Actually, the journal was actually done. It was done. I was supposed to release it the year before, right along with the course, but I put a pause on it. So I went back to it and I started, and it was almost like God said, change it. And I basically, over the course of like a week and a half, I completely changed the entire thing
wow,
in October,
mhm,
and to release the book in November of last year, called Stop Stopping Your Success.
mhm,
And it is a guided journal that helps you to identify those things that are stopping and blocking you,
mhm,
so that you can rewrite your story, rewrite your script. Because the truth of the matter is, it all begins, everything we need is really already on the inside of us. And
mhm.
when I learned that, all I wanted to do was tell everybody else. I just wanted to share it. And so for that reason, I did create my book finally. And it was almost like, I'm like, okay, God, I did it. I'm a finisher. I did it, and that felt good. So the limiting beliefs, like, it really is important to know that you have them, because it's like anything else, right?
Mm,
If you don't know that you're sick, you don't know to take action to get well, right? If you don't know that your blood pressure is high, then you don't know that you need to be watching what you eat, or you need to, change your exercise routine. Like, you don't know these things.
mhm,
And so I think it's really important for us to really to check ourselves when you hear those negative thoughts, when you hear, what do you say about yourself? That's what I like to ask. What are you saying about yourself?
mhm,
Um, some of the most, I think, the easiest to pick out is those I can'ts. Like, I can't start a business because I'm too old, or I can't lose weight, or I can't run a marathon. Like, I tell my kids all the time, you don't know what you can't do
Yeah.
unless you try to do it.
Yeah.
So I have tried to block out the words I can't in my household, because
Mhm.
I feel like it minimizes you, and it's you doing it to yourself. It's not even everybody else. That's just what we're telling ourselves. So as far as how to do it, first identify them. You got to know what they are.
Mhm.
And then just check them. Like, is this really true? Like, ask yourself, is this really true?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times we'll find that somebody else said it, and then it became almost like a fact in our head.
Mhm.
And really, it's not true, because just because somebody else says it doesn't make it that way.
Mhm.
We just create a reality around it based on what we think or what we've experienced. And
Mhm.
then when you realize it's not true, shift it, change that around, change that around. So for if you have someone who's, like, for instance, says, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm not good enough for this, or I'm not good enough to apply for this job. Why?
Mhm.
Says who? Who says it? Who who
Yeah.
who told you that? So acknowledging that, that there may be some truth
Mhm.
in the fact that this isn't true. Like, this
Mhm.
may not be a fact. Um, and then, when you can't answer that question, like, why are you not good enough? Well, because I'm listening.
Mhm.
Because, oh, you don't have anything, right? Well, maybe I'm not qualified. Okay, but so what?
Mhm.
You just never know. Um, so anyway, once you realize that, maybe it's not, what you're thinking isn't true, then you rewrite it. I am worthy, or I am qualified, or whatever that thing is that you're not believing in yourself for, rewrite it. And I usually have people write it as an I am statement, like a I am affirmation. Like,
Mhm.
I am worthy of all the good things in life. I am worthy of all the things that God has promised me. Um, I am capable and intelligent enough to get this job, even though I'm scared. And that's really what a lot of it comes down to: fear. A lot
Mhm.
of it is just that we're scared to believe, scared to think that we will get it, scared to think that we are worthy, scared to think we're scared. It's fear based.
Yeah. 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 I love everything you're sharing. And I think it's about deprogramming our conscious and subconscious mind,
Yes.
because I
Yes.
think we do carry not only trauma, but our ancestors' DNA and belief. And I know what we do with it is really up to us. But again, we
Mm-hmm.
live in a society that is at time toxic, healthy, dishonest, and you just
Yeah.
don't know what to do, because no matter
Yeah.
what you do, someone's not gonna like it. Oh, if you
I
do
think the
it,
most
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I think the most profound thing that I learned in my adult life is
Mhm.
that I have to create my own beliefs.
Mm.
I think that as we grow up in families that, as you mentioned just now, is that we carry our ancestors' DNA and beliefs. There
Mhm.
are things that are going to be passed down, but the important thing is to identify what is right for me. What is right for me today? Because I say this all the time, like, just because grandma and them said it doesn't mean that it fits the script for me.
Mhm.
Right. So holding on to a belief system that does not align with who you are and what you desire in your life isn't going to be beneficial for you. So learning to create your own belief system is more important, because if you think about it, sometimes there are children, people will say, oh my God, you're so bad. You ain't gonna be nothing. You're gonna end up in jail. Like, why? And when people are saying things like that, it's creating a belief system of not being able to believe in themselves, of not being, but when you get to that point when they decide what they said was crap,
Mm,
I'm going to go and do whatever that thing is for them, whether it's to get a PhD or become an MD, whether it's to, create their own business and be a multi-million, whatever it is,
mhm,
we are in charge. And I think that is the most profound thing that I've learned, is
mhm.
that my own belief system is the only one. As long as, to me, as long as it aligns with what my belief in God says, what God says, then I think that's the most important one.
Yeah, yeah. As you were talking, I keep getting different visions and scenarios. We, all of us have our homes. Have,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do we put a sign on the door that says, come on in, grab anything you want and leave, whether I know you or not, it's okay.
No, we
Whether you
don't.
come in with your shoes, it's all right. You grab whatever you
No.
want and leave. And I think that's what we do to ourselves. That's
Mm-hmm.
how much freedom we give people over our lives. We let
Yeah.
them in, they take what they need, and they know exactly who to go to for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like you lion and the lamb, which is in the Bible. I
Right.
mean, if you see it today, the lion's gonna, attack the little lamb. You know, people know where to go. And
Oh,
once we
absolutely.
find our voice and freedom, these
Yes.
people feel threatened by our
Yep.
existence, by the amount of power that has been suppressed for
Yes.
generations.
Yep.
It's just we find our voice, we're speaking our truth, and there's just something that's not sitting with them.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah.
and that's why I think when you start to change, right? When you begin to create the boundaries, when you start and people kind of come and it's like, oh, she's acting funny, or she's, being so different, because they have been accustomed to that version of you
Mhm.
that was not serving you, but was serving them.
Yeah.
And so when you create this new version of you that's now serving you, then heads will turn.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And I've always shared, people have the right to believe what they want, doesn't mean it's our truth. And we also have the right to speak of the hell that we've been through, right? Because
Absolutely.
starting up, you have a podcast, you can understand. When I first
Absolutely.
started a podcast, yeah, some people left and they had their judgments. And did it hurt?
Mhm.
Just a little? Did I keep going? Hell yes, right? It's just
Yes.
finding peace in the chaos,
Yes.
because I mean,
That's
look at the
important.
world we live in. It's just making the best of everything, right? I always tell people,
Yeah.
write your story, and do
Yes.
not let anyone take the pen or paper, whatever you're writing on, and you get to decide when you stop, which chapter, which page you flip. No one else.
Absolutely. I
No one
love
else.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. I actually created a guided meditation that's called Rewriting the Narrative, because I want people to be able to go and really focus in on knowing just what you just
Mhm.
said, that you hold the pen and you get to change. Like, your narrative may have been a victim,
Mhm.
but you don't have to stay there. You can shift your narrative and live the rest of your life as a survivor. I was that person. Like, I was a victim for a very long time until I realized that it just took me shifting to
Mhm.
become the survivor.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
while I survived physically, mentally, I had not.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we we're surviving every day, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard because I think and I know all of us have so much love to give. When
Yes.
people manipulate, use and abuse
Mm-hmm.
and take away our light, and we find ourselves in the void and darkness, it can be
Yeah.
hard to come out of. And it's okay to be a victim, just to not be the victim of your future, right? Because as moms, we have kids, we don't have time for that stuff. There are kids looking up
Mm-mm.
to us. I don't have
Yes.
time for it, right? Like,
Right.
I'm in pain as I'm recording this. Who cares? Like, I don't have time. I'm only getting, we don't get, today's October 31st. When is going to be the next one? Next year. I'm
Right.
making the best of now. It's living in the
Gotta
now.
make it the best of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Living in the now. I like that.
Yeah. Tell me more about your podcast. We don't even need to explain the name. It explains itself.
Yes. So I won't go into explaining the name, but I will share with you how it came about. So
Mhm.
um last year I was taking a shower, getting ready for the kids' sports game. They had a football game. And so I was just there, and that's usually when me and God are just really connecting. And
Mhm.
it literally was something that was dropped into my spirit. You are not your trauma. And I was like, okay, God, I know I'm supposed to do something with this, but I don't know what right now. So I wrote it down because I knew like it was too powerful. And honestly, my first response was, well, God, you've never said that to me before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was powerful that moment. And I reflect on that moment a lot, because what I had to realize is I wasn't ready to receive that message before.
Mhm.
My mind was not in a place to really truly understand what that meant, until he gave it to me. So I pondered it, and I decided that it needed to be a message that the rest of the world got a chance to
Yeah.
hear, and people who had been affected by trauma, who
Mhm.
were in a stuck place like me. So what I did in creating the podcast was to create a platform that was a safe place, because when people hear trauma, they get nervous, they get weird sometimes, they kind of get uncomfortable. But the truth is,
Mhm.
most of us have experienced some type of trauma. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's all, the big T's, the rape, molestation, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there are some very traumatic things that happen to each of us. While my childhood, the rape was, my childhood trauma that caused the most impact, I have experienced other traumatic situations in my
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So and that's what kind of helps me become aware. But what I wanted to do is I wanted people to really understand trauma. I wanted to create a safe space that allowed people to talk more about what they experienced, but not just stop there, because the guests that come onto my show are people who have experienced trauma, but they have overcome, like they have began a healing journey, and because, like you mentioned before, we all heal in different ways.
Mhm.
They share with us the different ways, the different things that they've experienced, and the different ways that they have learned to overcome, the work through, um, begin their healing journey, because each person is at a different part of it.
Mhm.
I also have, this is also a space where I have professionals that come in and they help and guide, because I feel like life is about learned experiences. And the more we can share our learned experiences with other people, we can help people who aren't maybe really just ready to take that step. But the goal is to empower and encourage people to take that step and begin their healing journey.
Yeah.
So that is the essence of You Are Not Your Trauma podcast.
Oh, I love that. You mentioned my favorite word, which is the podcast tagline, healing together. And it was a no-brainer for me that we needed to unite, come
Yes.
as one, and heal together. So often we think, I'm a grown woman or a macho
Mm-hmm.
man. I don't need a therapist. I don't need to talk about it.
Yeah.
When really, really, people go home, they crumble. And they
Yeah.
have money, they crumble. They
Yeah.
have success, they crumble. It's
Yeah.
like, what is it that is causing people to fall back and fall forward and not being able to stand still and be present, right? And I
Yeah.
think as some people don't like it, coming together, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. The pandemic had to teach us that.
Yeah.
There
I
was
mean, and
old,
honestly,
young, everyone came.
we were created for community. Like that is the essence of the world that God created. Like that is what we're supposed to do. I think culturally we get in this world that we live in, we get so caught up in not wanting people to see our weaknesses, not wanting people to know that these things happen. I was one of those people. I was the most like silent. Like, I had learned the essence of existing in plain sight, but not, I was just there.
Mhm.
And I was the epitome of, I'm okay. Everything's okay. I'm great. Everything's good. But,
Yeah.
what people didn't know was what was the anguish that was going on the inside.
Mm.
But I came up in a world. I'm a 80s kid, so I came up
Mhm.
in a world where you didn't tell your business. There are just certain things you didn't talk about. I
Mm.
feel like one of the most detrimental statements is what happens in this house stays in this house, because it has literally kept some people stuck in some things that they had no business being stuck in
Mm.
or consistently dealing with.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it's mind blowing, society normalizes dysfunction as a healthy way of coping and living. And that's why I've already been a black sheep. I don't care what box people put me in. And I'm gonna say something, right? We normalize
right.
racism, bullying, and different diseases. Everything has a category and it must fit there to be normal. When really it's messed up. People go to work
Yeah.
and get harassed at work, and companies don't do much about it. And little girls, little boys are saying, "Mommy or Daddy, this is what happened to me." And they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Did you make this up, sweetie?" What the
Mm-hmm.
heck that
Mm-hmm.
does to a soul, to a child? They grow up hungry and angry, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I love what you're doing and what I'm
Thank
doing as
you.
well, because
Yes, I love what you're doing as
yeah,
well.
yeah, we're just breaking down beliefs and dysfunction to say no,
Yes.
mm, no, no. And
And that's so important. One of the things that I feel like he really pulled at me was transparency.
mm,
Probably 6 or 7 years ago, I just started hearing it. And I
mm,
was like, okay, God, what does that even mean? Like, what does that look like? Because I was the girl who had her Facebook page locked down. I wasn't sharing nothing. I had groups of people like, these people can see this about me. And I took that much time and energy. Like, my page was private. There were
mm,
certain posts that if you worked with me, you wouldn't see if you were in this
mhm,
category. It was terrible. And now it's like, but I kept hearing it. And I was like, God, what you want me to do? Unlock my Facebook page? Fine. You know, but what I didn't know that he needed me to be vocal about my story, because I really, unless you were very, very, very close to me, like my husband knew, my parents knew, unless you were in that very close proximity, some of my best friends, you didn't know. And I look back now and I'm like, it's shocking to me sometimes to
mhm,
remember how quiet and private I was. But when God said, be transparent, it took me some time, because I was like, that was uncomfortable.
yeah,
That was uncomfortable. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with sharing their experiences, because it is uncomfortable. It is not fun to talk about some things that really and truly hurt you. But
mhm,
what I have learned is that if what I went through can help someone else get through it just a little bit easier, or with the knowledge to know there's something better on the other side of this. Like, it's possible, because sometimes we get so stuck in our pain that we don't even think that it's possible to come out of the pain.
yeah, yeah. I always say people should always turn their pain into purpose, because
Yes.
we have felt it, so we know what it's like. We all feel
Mm-hmm.
pain. We all get hurt and feel
Yeah.
shame or guilt. Do we feel it at the same degree? Absolutely not. Even if you compare two people that have the same
Mm-hmm.
trauma and they suffer differently, right?
Yes.
And I just had a vision of, I think it was Peter when Jesus asked, "Do you love me?"
Mm-hmm.
Three times, I think he asked, "Do
Yeah.
you
Three
really
times.
love me?" And I felt that that's what God has said to me, or express. It started with me. Do you really love yourself? Who are you?
Mm.
Why not? Why don't you love
Ooh.
yourself? If you're made in my image, do you think I'm imperfect? I am God, I made you. And it started with, do you love my sheep? Like,
Mm.
I think so, but there might be
Some of them.
there's lions around, so I don't know if I should go feed your sheep, God, right? And it's just, I've had to humble myself to
Yeah,
that T, to the ground, and there's so much power in that, right?
it
Because so
really
many
is.
people feel so stuck, so weak,
Yes.
because they ask for help,
Mhm.
and there's so much
That's so
shame
true.
and guilt that ties to it. And
Yeah, so true.
yeah, 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 there is, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with, and some key points you want my guests to get from this?
Most importantly, I would say that I would like for them to just really understand that
Mm,
it doesn't matter what you've been through,
mm,
you don't have to allow it to define you.
ooh,
You are were created, you, we were all created for such an amazing life. Do
mhm,
we have to stumble through sometimes to get to the good part?
mm,
Yes, we all have our wilderness moments.
yeah,
But on the other side, there is and I hate to be all, but there is that land of milk and honey. You know,
yeah,
there
yeah,
is joy, there is peace, there is happiness. Like where I sit today, I wouldn't have imagined myself being there
mm,
10 years ago,
mhm,
but I am now reaping the rewards of the prayers that I prayed
yeah,
over and over and over again. So, my message is this: you are not your trauma. You are not defined by an experience that, whether you created it or someone else did, you are not defined by that. You
mm,
get to choose to change your story.
yeah, yeah, and to leave other people's garbage to them, right?
That too. Yes,
It's
please.
yeah, it's knowing to set boundaries. We can love each other and
Yeah,
have healthy boundaries. And just
absolutely.
because I love someone doesn't mean I have to carry their pain and burden. That's not my responsibility. And if they
No.
do ask for my opinion, I'm happy to give that as well, is to get out of the funk that that person is in, right? Because we talked about that
Right.
mentality, and
Yes,
it's a trap and it's hard to get out of. Yeah, yeah.
it is very much so.
Yeah. So what is the meaning of life for you, Harriet?
You know, I would say the meaning of life for me is to become, because I feel like I'm still becoming her,
Mm,
become the version of me that God created me to be,
mm,
to walk and in his footsteps. Because each day when I pray, I ask him to come into the day with me, and I ask him to be one step ahead so that I can follow him, because I don't want him we walking together and he go right and I go left. No, I want to continue to follow him. Um, so I seek his guidance, and really that is it for me. Like I want to be the version um of me that he created me to be. I want to get to know her. I don't feel like I know her, but I want to continue. I'm getting to know her. I want to continue to get to know her
mhm,
and see the wife and mother and daughter and sister and friend that she
mhm.
is, as I am living in the life that in the yeah, living the life that God created me to live.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can say this, that you are a strong woman. You
Thank you.
are someone's guide, meaning they can listen to even an episode on your podcast or hear your story and say, I was waiting to just to hear that from another woman, whether it's a woman
Wow.
of color or woman in general, because
Right.
at the end of the day, we can transform and understand each other, even though we may not speak the same language. And trauma
That is
doesn't
true.
discriminate. That's what I always say. It
It does
doesn't.
not. It
Yeah.
does not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we all can get a part of it.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where can my listeners find you and support your work? And listen
absolutely.
to your
Uh,
podcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. They can listen to my podcast at um honestly anywhere, any their favorite podcasting app. You can check out and learn more about the show, me, um, and the guests that I have on the show at www.youarenotyourtrauma.com. I'm
Mhm.
not exactly sure when this episode will release, but I do have an app that is being released really soon that will provide resources. It will provide some community because I really want people to have just another place to go to be able to deal with what they have been experiencing.
Mhm.
Um, but they can start by www.youarenotyourtrauma.com. That's the easiest way. You can
Mhm.
go there. You can listen to episodes. You can check out information about the show, the guests. You can get you some merch. You can do all the things there. So start there and follow me on socials. I'm Harriet M Harris MBA on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the things.
Sorry, I just you're naming all the stuff. Some of them I don't know how to use yet.
Oh God. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't understand TikTok. I'm sorry, millennials. I just
Trust me,
don't.
I'm only learning. Like I'm just out there. I'm there. I can't say it's great, but I am
Mhm.
definitely there. But no, you can find me there. And You Are Not Your Trauma also has its own social media. So You Are Not Your Trauma is on You Are Not Your Trauma podcast on Facebook, Instagram, also on TikTok and YouTube as well.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, Harriet, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
podcast.
you.
And
Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
having me.
Yes, I know time goes by so fast.
It
This has been
does.
a very delicious, needed conversation, and it's
Thank you.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your heart, your story, and for
Thank you.
helping those
Thank you
who
for
need it
having
the
me.
most. You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.